It's needless to emphasize what the world is going through due to the pandemic. Many dreams are shattered, many aspirations are crumbled, many plans and programs are halted or destroyed, many ambitions are buried, many love is cremated, economy is dwindled, life almost seemed to have come to a grinding halt. But then we as humanity, we as human beings have that unique ability, what I would have always called it the human endowments, and one of which is free will. By exercising that free will, we can be optimistic, we can be positive, we can be hopeful, and take positive steps and change the entire scenario in our favor. And if a country has an able and visionary leader like we have, and many other countries have also, it is an added blessing to take initiative at the right time. I think it will not be an exaggeration to say that we are at war. We are at war against Corona. And we have no choice but to win. The only difference in this specific war is that victory is actually when we retreat and not when we advance. And I'm sure you know what I mean. Meaning, when we take an about turn and take a back seat, that is when the possibility of winning. In fact, last few days or so, many people that I happen to speak to on various times on different aspects, at least a few of them told me that we can't go outside now, at least we can go inside, we can go inward, and rightly said it. Now, I've asked one or two people, what does it mean going inward, inside? We need to pause and reflect. That's the only way. That is, the question that I would often pose to myself is that, is this pandemic, now Corona, is it a bane or boon? Is it a blessing or a curse? Is it a disaster or a fortune? I believe anything like this will never be a disaster. I would say that even if I happen to be a victim of that, not all storms come to disrupt your life. Some actually come to clear our path. So whether it is bane or boon, I rest my case there as far as that is concerned. But a few things that we need to understand is that how we react to the circumstances. Are we reacting with anxiety and fear? Remember, this situation, we need our immune system to its strongest. I've heard many people are consuming a whole lot of vitamin C, which of course is the right thing to do to boost our immune system. But apart from that, what we need to remember is that one of the great contributors to our immune system is our attitude. When we are experiencing fear, anxiety, or nervousness because of the situation, it will straight away reduce our immunity. The immunity is of two types. One is the physical immunity. The second is our emotional immunity. If our emotional or mental immunity is weak, even consuming a substantial dose of vitamin C will not really matters. So therefore, my point is that we cannot afford to respond with anxiety. We got to be bold, at the same time we got to be very, very responsible. We got to be concerned but not be anxious. Now, what's the difference between being concerned and anxious? Being concerned is an intellect initiated response, whereas being anxious is emotion initiated response. So in any eventuality, calamity or disaster like this, our natural tendency is to react with emotion, with anxiety. But I think as students of Vedanta, we need to make sure that we respond with reason, be concerned, be bold, at the same time not be foolhardy. In fact, I've been receiving quite a few calls, to fathom why. The question is generally as to why this is happening, what's going wrong, etc. In fact, one of my followers from Australia in Perth phoned me yesterday. In fact, she asked me the question: is the world coming to an end? And my response was, if the world is coming to an end, that is not a disaster, that's a good news. But the problem is, situation is worse than that. In fact, that is where we need to take responsibility. The world is coming to an end, that's not something to be afraid of. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, as we all have studied, those of you have studied in the 4th chapter, the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 7 and 8, Bhagavan Krishna talks about a very important aspect of life. In fact, it is one of the oft quoted verses in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 7 and 8, which reads, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. The translation reads, O Bharata, O Arjuna, whenever there is indeed a decline of dharma, righteousness, and a rise of adharma, unrighteousness, then I manifest myself. That is verse 7. The verse 8 reads, for what Bhagavan manifest myself? He says, for the protection of the virtuous, for the destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of dharma, righteousness, I am born from age to age. That is the translation of chapter 4, verse 7 and 8. Now, the law of nature, The law of the universe is that, as Bhagavan Krishna points out, when there is a decline of dharma, Krishna says, I manifest myself. We unconsciously deviate from the path of dharma, path of righteousness. The nature gives us a shock therapy in the form of earthquake, or it can be hurricane, it could be flood or war, or it could be civil war, famine, or pandemic. All these are different shock therapy that universe confers upon us to wake us up. Because sometimes when humanity is in deep slumber and we carry on with the unrighteous, negative, adharmic ways, the only way humanity will wake up is through shock therapy only. If that also doesn't work, sometimes the masters appear. Now this appearance of benevolent and malevolent appearance has been happening from time immemorial. It is not happening once or twice. If you look at the world, especially the history of India, every 25 years or so, there is an outstanding spiritual master up here, and they lift humanity to the height of spiritual perfection, and then he or she fades and another one's appear. Now this has been the history of India, and also the disaster. So we got to realize what Bhagavan Krishna is saying, that whenever there is the destruction of dharma and a rise of adharma, there is this manifestation. Now then you may wonder, where are we going wrong? Where are we deteriorating in this dharma? What wrong are we doing? What are the negative way of life that we are going through? And there are so many. Each one of us, if you take, we can introspect and find out. I mean, that is what we need to understand, we need to do practically. In fact, humanity as a whole, I would specify 4 things that going wrong in the world. So situation like this is a shock therapy or a wake-up call. One is, humanity at large is actually in a race for technological advancement. Each country in every sector of human life is actually in a race for technological advancement. In fact, if you look at the technological advancement in the world, I would say it is far beyond what we actually need. The technological development is much more than what we need to live comfortably and happily. And then humanity is programmed with the way that we need to improve the technology. In fact, remember, I'm not discounting the fact that the benefit of a lot of technology that we are experiencing. I mean, probably 50 or 100 years before, the doctors could not actually see what's happening in our brain. We have the machine to see what's happening in the brain. The doctors could not see what's happening in the stomach of a pregnant woman. I mean, that they can see and take advantage of it. I understand that. Simple things like, if you want to fly from Perth to Sydney, you can book a ticket sitting in Durban, and you can cancel when you are in San Francisco. I mean, all this are technological advancement. I'm cognizant of that fact. But unfortunately, there is one aspect of technological advancement because we are unduly focusing, because of which there is certain negative things that are happening to humanity. In fact, the 3 thinkers of the world, so they're supposed to be thinkers, they are the scientists, the economists, and politicians. All three of them actually collude to pursue the technological advancement in the external world with a false notion that by improving the world, they can increase the happiness of people. But if you go back in the past, 50 or 100 or 150 years ago, many of the technology that our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents did not have. But remember, they were much happier lot than who we are today. They did not experience stress and stress-related illness that we are going through today. You might wonder, what's wrong with technological advancement? Number one, because we are unduly focusing upon improving the world, our self is neglected. Our inner development is neglected. As a result, happiness in the individual is reducing at an alarming rate. Number one, if you look at it, human intelligence is becoming redundant. What our grandparents did with their body, and they could keep their body fit because their body was used. But today we have machineries, we have technologies, which, we don't have to use the body. As a result, the body is becoming redundant. Similarly, a time can come because of the advancement of artificial intelligence. Human intelligence can become redundant. Hope it doesn't happen. We are living an artificial way. Artificiality and conventionality has overpowered human life. Artificial taste, artificial thrill, speed, fashion, food, every aspect of it, there is artificiality. As a result, the natural way of living is gone. There is no way that we will wake up to the reality unless there is a shock therapy. So we need to pause and introspect and observe each one of our life, what is happening within us. In fact, if you look at the field of education, everything about the education is about the world outside and least about oneself. Education has become what we call servile education. Education is only to achieve something. Most people study to become somebody or to earn a survival. That is servile education. Whereas true education is liberal education, where the education is for the sake of education. The word education is derived from its two Latin terms. They are ex plus ducere. The word ex means out, ducere means to draw. Therefore, the word education means to draw out from within. Some of the most educated people in the world are not educated in the conventional sense of the term, but they're educated in the true sense of the term. So, education has become so servile, so materialistic that we only think of education to become somebody. As a result, today's children do not have childhood. They are under undue pressure to learn everything about the external world, and whatever they learned, they don't even use it in their life. Mahatma Gandhi remarked that education bereft of self-development leads to knowledge without character, science without humanity, wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, worship without sacrifice, commerce without morality, and politics without principle. Education without self-development, humanity goes through all that. That is science without humanity. In fact, the science has developed, the technology has developed so much so, the very existence of technology is threatening, in fact, the presence of technology is threatening the very existence of humanity. In fact, the amount of nuclear weapons that is available in the world, it can destroy the world 10 times over. That's the amount of weapons that's available. That's what's happening. Science without humanity. Wealth without work. Everybody wants to achieve maximum wealth with minimum work. That's a mindset. Pleasure without conscience. Because of the economic disparity in the world, a person can spend millions upon millions for one's own personal pleasure and absolutely oblivious of their neighbor who may not even have food to eat. Worship without sacrifice. Religion today has boiled down to mere multiplication of numbers. Each religion, whether it is Islam or Christianity or Hinduism, they are very happy having the number of people in their particular sect or creed multiplied. That is hardly religion. The word religion, as you know, is to unite to oneself. Re plus ligare. Re means again, ligare means to unite. Worship without sacrifice, commerce without morality. A lot of people believe you cannot be successful in the business if you are not corrupt. Yet I know many people who are successful business people. They are far away from any kind of corruption or immoral business dealings. And politics without principles. Now, this is the order of the day. I'm still talking about the 7th and 8th chapter, verse of the chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita. When we ask the question, what is that we are doing wrong? What we are doing wrong is exactly, number one, the unnecessary advancement of technology. The technological advancement happens so much so that we are caught up in a vicious cycle. We don't know where to stop. Because every technology produces a negative side effect. And to counter that, we have to find something else, and so on and so forth. In fact, if you look at the multiplication of population, because of advancement of medical science, we have artificially advanced our life expectancy. It is more blessing, it's more blessed and honorable to live 60 years with health and happiness than 80 or 90 years senility. Yes, technology has advanced. The second thing that what we're doing wrong is, this is very crucial that we need to understand. Human beings live on the earth as if we own the earth. Humanity as a whole feel that we have more right to live on this earth than other animals and plants. We have cultivated a terrible notion, terrible attitude, that we feel that we have more right to live on the earth than animals and plants. We have no more right to live on this earth than our own, other so-called lesser beings, animals and plants. Because the whole universe works in a spirit of interconnection. The whole universe works in a spirit of interdependence. Humanity has forgotten the law of interdependence. As a result, we are in the process of destroying the survival of other creatures and the plants for our own survival. In fact, we are going through a unique spirit of apartheid, a discrimination based on species. So when we believe that we have more right to live on this earth compared to the animals and plants, that is apartheid based on species. South Africa may have come out of apartheid, but humanity as a whole is still in the spirit of apartheid, in that discrimination. As a result, what do? We destroy the rainforest to produce food, to cultivate animals. We have polluted our rivers, polluted our ocean. I may be reiterating things that you already know, but we got to be cognizant of this fact. It has to be repeated time and time again. Otherwise, in our chase for wealth creation and technological advancement, we forget it. In fact, they say the humanity destroys the rainforest, about 18 million acres every year. The rainforests are destroyed. As a result, it brings about an ecological imbalance. Biodiversity declines. 30% of earth is forest. And the primary cause of forest being destroyed is for agriculture. They say every minute, 20 football field size of forest being destroyed. Every minute we are talking about. And it will only take less than 100 years to destroy the entire forest in the world. In fact, it is because of the deforestation, 17% of greenhouse gas produced because of that. And 20% of world's oxygen is produced in the Amazon forest, and that is being destroyed. Now the question we need to remember, we need to introspect. So when we say you can't go outside, we need to go inside, that is the time to reflect. If we are destroying 18 million acres of forest every year, you think universe will keep quiet? Will the nature keep quiet? Will God keep quiet? We will be visited by shock therapies like this. And this is not the first time. In the history of humanity, for as long as 1,000 or 2,000 years, there has been shock therapy like this. We artificially multiply animals, goats, sheep, cows, etc., for our food. In fact, this is true even those so-called animal lovers. In fact, if you look at some of the animal lovers, they claim they love animals, but they have a selective love. They love the animals that they like and kill another animal, cut and eat. That is not animal love, that is selective love. And we put them through unimaginable pain just for the purpose of 2 inches of taste. If humanity as a whole is putting through billions of animals through suffering every single day, just because we want to enjoy, we want to entertain one of our 5 senses for a few minutes, that is 2 inches of tongue, do you think will the universe will keep quiet? Do you think will nature keep quiet? Do you think God will keep quiet? Krishna told us, whenever there is a decline of dharma, I manifest again and again. Sambhavami yuge yuge. For what? Paritranaya sadhuna. To protect the virtuous. Vinashaya dushkritam. To destroy the evil. Dharma samsthapanarthaya. To establish dharma. Sambhavami yuge yuge. I will appear again and again. We destroy creatures. We brand them as pests just to protect our crops. In fact, when we need to pause and reflect. Remember, when we say our crop is destroyed by or eaten by the insect, remember, it is the very insect are responsible for the creation of the crop. Without those insects, the pollination will not take place. So it is their right to consume certain part of our crop. And what do? Humanity, to protect our crop, we destroy them. Nature will not keep quiet. Today, again, because of the advancement of technology, The communication towers, the telephone towers that is all over the world, the scientists say that it is adversely affecting our brethren who have no voice. It doesn't work. So the life of insects, the birds, many other insects that we don't know, their life is threatened just because of the communication, the technology. In fact, the research done on the negative impact of many of the technology is actually silenced by scientific mafia. There is a scientific mafia that is going in the world. What do? They silence, they shut the research, they shut the scientists up, not to reveal the negative effect of many technological development. Because, and the scientists also, their survival itself is dependent upon their ignorance, not knowing the negative impact. So therefore, what we need to remember, the second among the four things that you got to remember is that we feel that we have more right to live on the earth than animals and plants. Remember, human beings have no more right on earth, on nature, than animals and plants. We have equal right. Until humanity realizes that Sambhavami yuge yuge, Krishna says, I will visit again and again, many times in benign form or many times in malevolent form. The third thing that I want you to reflect upon is accumulation and concentration of wealth in the world. There is no shortage of wealth in the world, but there is only problem is the concentration of wealth. Oliver Goldsmith, a famous thinker, a poet, philosopher, says, where wealth accumulates, men decay. Where wealth accumulates, men decay. Now this idea of where wealth accumulates, men decay, it is true both in the sense of microcosm as well as the microcosm. When we only focus upon multiplication of wealth, ignoring the fundamental values of life and living, men decay. And it is very evident if you observe what's happening in the many first world countries. The stress and stress-related illness is increasing because they are programmed with the belief that multiplication of wealth increase our happiness. So we need to pause and introspect that wealth is not meant to increase our happiness. Wealth is meant only to provide our basic needs. Happiness is improved, happiness is increased only by improving the quality of our thoughts. The only way we can improve our happiness is improving the quality of our thought. But humanity has forgotten that idea that our happiness can multiply only by improving our thought. And what are they doing? They are multiplying the wealth. Each country is trying to overpower its rival for wealth creation. The humanity believe that the growth of the country is dependent upon the economic growth of the country. We need to change this belief system. The world believes that the progress of a nation is dependent upon the progress of the wealth. That is a false belief system. There is only one country in the world who doesn't believe that economic growth determines the progress of the nation, and that country is one of the smallest countries in the world, that is Bhutan. Their belief system, their ideology is that it is not the economic growth that determines the growth of the country. It is the nature. They protect the nature. They do everything possible to make sure that the nature is taken care of. So because of this wrong belief system that only economic growth is the determining factor, the growth of the country. Unlike Bhutan, Bhutan believes in happiness quotient. They believe that the growth of the country is determined by the growth of the happiness of the people. And except that all the other countries believe in economic growth. No doubt economic growth is important, but that is not the only factor that determines the growth of the country. That is what we need to realize. If you look at the disparity of the wealth in the world, I was told in South Africa, the wealthiest 1% of the people in this country own 67% of the country's wealth. 1% of the people in this country own the 67% of the wealth. To put it differently, the top 10% own 93% of the wealth in South Africa. Now, this is true not only in South Africa, in globally. 90% of the wealth is owned by the 10% of the people. This is the economic disparity. And why is that? Why is that such an economic disparity? That is 1% of the people in South Africa own 67% of the wealth. Why 10% of the people own 97% of the wealth in the country? Driven by two factors, selfishness and ego. When pursuit of wealth is driven by ego, we get caught up in the notion, what I would call as the ego-induced greed. Ego-induced greed is when you believe who I am because how much I have. The country believes the growth of the country is only determined by the growth of the wealth. Yes, I don't discount the fact that the economic growth is important, but only that is not the growth of the country. As a result, people have, because of this wrong notion, people have forgotten the very purpose of wealth. Wealth, remember, is not meant to give us happiness. It is only meant to give us our needs, human needs. What is wealth? What is money? Money is a commodity that can be exchanged for sense objects, nothing else. With money, we can buy color and form for the eyes, sound for the ears, taste for the tongue, smell for the nose, and touch for the skin. These are the 5 things that wealth can buy. And when you give certain amount of wealth, in return, we get 5 sense objects. That's all. Which we call luxury, food, whatever that you want to call it. But then we forgot that there is deeper purpose than that. That is the third, the concentration of wealth. The fourth, which is the most important, is population explosion in the world. Because humanity is not becoming cognizant and not taking enough initiative, there is an incredible explosion of population. And remember, you may wonder what's wrong with that. It puts extra load on nature. It puts extra pressure on the world, on nature, for food production. It is shocking to know the growth of population. Only about 300 years ago, that is about 1700, the population of the world was only 610 million people. And 100 years later, it grown up to about 1 billion people. In 1800, the population was about 1 billion people. In 1900, the population is about 1.6 billion people. In the year 2000, it was about 6 billion people. Year 2020, 7.8 billion people. And the anthropologists predict that by the year 2040, there will be 9.1 billion people living on the face of earth. Now remember, if there is 9.1 billion people living on this face of earth, the nature, the environment, the world need to provide food for them. The world need to provide all the requirement for them. Will that be a catastrophe, or what is happening now is a catastrophe? you make the conclusion. Nature has to provide food for this, and there will be much more destruction that is happening. That is why you find, as Bhagavan Krishna says, Sambhavami yuge yuge. Sambhavam means happening. The word Sanskrit word Sambhavam means an event, a situation, a happening, an instance. All these are. So you find, as far as you can remember, there are instances, calamities. As you know, 1720, there was plague in France. Over 1 million people, 100,000 people were killed. In 1820, that is exactly 100 years later, the cholera in Far East, in Thailand and Philippines, etc., over 100,000 people got killed. In 1920, Spanish flu, although it is not originated in Spanish, although it is called the Spanish flu, there are about 50 million people killed. And in 2020, corona pandemic, God forbid. Now, this is only recorded every 100 years, as far as we can remember. But in between, remember, there was World War I, 40 million people got killed. World War II, about 85 million people got killed. And there are so many other disasters like this that is happening. Now, my point of bringing these statistics is not to infuse fear, please. You got to be very objective when you are, when you are listening to these statistics. And if you see, many of these happens in overpopulated countries. See, I'm not even talking about what do you call this? The war that happened between the countries, and civil wars and genocide that has happened in many parts of the world. Now, when Bhagavan Krishna says, Sambhavami yuge yuge, I will appear again and again, we got to be extremely cognizant of these factors. That is, by being conscious of this, we change our life into a conscious living. So my objective of bringing these factors to your notice is to understand, now, why are we learning Vedanta? Why do we study the Bhagavad Gita? So that we develop a conscious living. At the moment, our living has become so mechanical. There is no awareness, there is no consciousness. And then it appears, Bhagavan appear in the form of corona, which they say is only 150 nanometer, which is so minuscule. And the what do you call this? The earth is about, the space on the surface of earth is about 550 square kilometer. And such a tiny aspect can, hold the entire humanity in ransom. Appearance like this happens again and again. So the purpose that we need to remember is that reflection, introspection. Our lifestyle need to change into a conscious living. Now, what happens is that when such eventualities occur, humanity is only conscious of what I would call drastic disaster. Remember, there are two types of disaster. One is disaster in slow motion and drastic disaster. Humanity is only conscious of the drastic disaster. Humanity is not conscious of disaster in slow motion. When we are not conscious of the disaster in slow motion, the world will wake us up. The universe will give us shock therapy. By giving shock, the humanity will wake up to the disaster in slow motion by giving us shock therapy. Drastic disasters are plague that appeared in 1720. If there is a world war, if the outbreak of cholera, Spanish flu in 1920 and corona, etc., all those are drastic disasters that we are aware. What about the disaster in slow motion? What are the disasters in slow motion? 8.7 million people die of hunger every year. Disaster in slow motion. Humanity is not awakened to that. 31.7 million people died from AIDS when it started in the year 1981. Disaster in slow motion. 47,000 people die every year due to depression. Disaster in slow motion. 36,500 people die because of flu. Disaster in slow motion. 800,000 people commit suicide every year. Disaster in slow motion. All these disaster in slow motion humanity is not aware of. Humanity wakes up only when there is a drastic disaster. Therefore, Bhagavan Krishna says that I will appear again and again just to wake us up. So one need to make a conclusion whether this disaster is a bane or boon. It is up to each one of us to make the conclusion. So coming back to, in the light of these four things that we are doing wrong, that includes undue technological advancement, raise in technological advancement. We believe that we have more right to live on this earth than animals and plants. Wealth concentration in one country or one set of people. And number four, population explosion. In the light of this, what you and me to reflect upon is to lead a conscious living. Now, what does it mean, living a conscious life? That is, when we are living, when we are existing, there is minimum negative impact in the world outside. When our lifestyle is producing barest minimum negative impact to animals, to plant, to other people, to the whole environment, then we are living a conscious living. Now introspect. How much of negative impact are we making because of our existence? Remember, in the four kingdoms, including mineral kingdom, vegetable kingdom, animal kingdom, and human kingdom, only human kingdom, their very existence produce a negative impact. Every other kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, their existence only contribute to nature. Their very presence becomes a benefit to nature. Whereas human beings, their presence becomes detrimental to universe. So therefore, these kind of catastrophes often affects only human being, not so much the animals. So conscious living means, I reiterate, to make sure that there is minimum negative impact because of our existence. When we are shopping, are we continuously buying products wrapped in plastic bags? There are options. Now that is an industry by on its own, the packaging industry. Negative impact, and because of that, the animals in the ocean suffer. Because of we pollute the ocean with the plastics. So going back to the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 7 and 8. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam sujameham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Every time I read this verse, I get goosebumps because it is such a solid truth. And why does this happen? You got to reiterate the 8th verse again. For the protection of the virtuous people are protected. For the destruction of the wicked doesn't mean only the wicked people, all right? Everything negative in the world. And for the establishment of dharma, I am born again and again. The 7th verse, Bhagavan Krishna is explaining the appearance of Bhagavan, or eventualities like this. And the 8th verse is talking about for what? What is the purpose? It is paritranaya sadhuna. Sadhuna means a noble people, the virtuous people, people who live a conscious life. They are always protected. Another very important verse in the Upanishad is that dharma eva hato hanti dharmo rakshati rakshita. Dharmo rakshati rakshita means dharma protects those who protects dharma. Dharma eva hato hanti dharmo rakshati rakshita. Tasmat dharmo na hantavya mano dharma hyavadhitat. Loosely translated, the Sanskrit verse means dharma destroy those who destroy dharma. Dharma protects those who protects dharma. Dharma does not destroy or cannot be destroyed. Dharma cannot be destroyed. Then it ceases to be dharma. In fact, there is a verse in the Bible in Romans chapter 8, book 8, verse 28, which says, all things work together for good to them that loved God. Romans 8:28 reads, all things work together for good to them that loved God. Everything worked well for those people who loved God. Now, when he says loved God, what does it mean? Just erect a statue of Shiva or Hanuman and worship? No, that is not what he's talking about, loved God. Loved God doesn't mean multiplying the numbers of our particular faith or creed. That is not loved God, loving God. So when Bible says all things work together for good to them that loved God, is not erect the statue of Jesus Christ on a cross and worship it. Not that. Loved God means loving his creatures. Every religion has expressed this in some way or the other. Jesus Christ said, if you love me, love my creatures. Our Hindu Shastras said, Madhava Seva, Manava Seva. Love for humanity is love for God. So going back to the slogan, Dharmo Rakshati Rakshita. Dharma protects those who protect Dharma. So if you are a person who's leading a life of conscious living, making sure that your presence in the world, your existence in the world is making minimum negative impact in the world, you are living a life of dharma. Dharmo rakshati rakshita. Remember, the whole of Bhagavad Gita is talking about dharma. What is my dharma? Mama dharma. The first word of the first verse of the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita begins with the word dharma. The last word of the last verse of the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita ends with the word mama. Dharma means my duty. Mama means mine. So the entire Bhagavad Gita is sandwiched between two words, mama dharma. What is my duty? When humanity forgets my duty, what is my purpose? What is the reason for my existence? Krishna says, if you forget that, sambhavami yuge yuge, I will appear again and again. And it's true, those who protect dharma. I mean, dharma, as I told you before, is a very broad, it's got very broad, large number of meanings. One of the meanings of the word dharma is my duty, my purpose. So, when we live a life of kindness, being conscious of other creatures suffering because of my existence, when we are acutely aware that my presence is causing minimum discomfort to the other people, as a life, as our own life as a whole, and even every moment, then we are leading a conscious life. I was reading a story the other day. Very interesting. It caught my attention. There was this lady who's working in a frozen food storage place, cold storage. And it so happened in the afternoon she had to go to the cold room, to a different cold room to take stock, take the inventory. And when she entered in one of the cold rooms, accidentally, the door of the cold room got locked. And the door can only be opened from outside. And she banged on the door. She screamed as loud as she can, but nothing happened. It is fully soundproof. Nobody can hear a noise outside. And she got stuck in the cold room. And having stayed in the cold room for about 4 hours or so, she was on the verge of collapsing and loses her life. And then miracle happened, as it were. The security guard of the factory, or that warehouse, or whatever you want to call it, suddenly came and opened the cold room at about 5 o'clock in the evening, while most staff in the office had left. Only the security guard was present. And when he opened the door, he found this lady was stuck inside the cold room. And the lady asked, "How did you know that I'm stuck here?" And he gave this explanation. Every day, nearly 90 people come to work in the morning, and I'm waiting in the security gate. Everybody walked past me as if I never existed. Everybody walked past me as if I'm invisible. You are the only person who greets me every day. "Good morning, how are you? Have a good day." And every evening when you leave, you are the only one person who greeted me as you leave the premises. And I used to wait for that every morning and evening, because when you greeted me, I felt that I existed. I felt nice, I felt comfortable just because you greeted me. And this morning I have seen you have arrived and you greeted me. But at 4 o'clock, when everybody left, I did not receive the same greeting from you. And I know during the day I've been here, I know that you have not left the premises. I haven't seen you. You're somewhere here. Where are you? I got panicked. I got concerned. I searched offices, opened every rooms, and I couldn't find you. And I opened many other cold rooms, and I came across this cold room. You were stuck there. Just a simple act of kindness, of greeting, have saved her life. Sometimes we tend to underestimate our simple benevolent gesture to humanity. We cannot afford to do that. Our simple kind gesture, very thought of kindness, makes an impact. So when we reduce our ego and selfishness, remember, dharmo rakshati rakshita. Dharma protects those who protect dharma. So when we pause and go within, as most people said to me, when we introspect, what we need to introspect is, am I protecting dharma? Is my existence is making minimum negative impact in the society? Krishna says the law of the universe, dharma protects those who protect dharma. And in order to protect that, we got to consciously reduce our ego and selfishness. The law of nature, the law of life is that anything that has no or minimum ego is always protected. If a baby is abandoned, very often happens in India, it happens here also, I believe. Abandoned babies. When certain ladies have unwanted kids, they abandon the baby. And as soon as a baby is spotted lying in the street or in the waste bin or wherever it is, there are dozens of people run after to save the baby. I remember this instance while I was in the ashram. Swamiji, my guru, got a phone call phone call was one of his devotees that there is a baby that is abandoned, and when I was going for the morning walk, I located the baby, and immediately, this is those days when there was no cell phone, etc. Immediately he came to his house and called my guru and said, what do I do? And his answer, Guru's answer was, don't do anything. What do you mean don't do anything? Just wait and watch. And within few minutes, there was about half a dozen people, or probably a dozen people. Every single one of them, one person want to adopt the baby, a second person want to take the baby to the hospital, a third person want to report to the police, a fourth person want to find an orphanage. Everybody is out to help the baby. Now, why a baby is lying on the street is everybody is looking forward to help the baby, because baby has no ego and selfishness. Now you go and lie down on the street and see how many people come and try to help you. Only police will come and chase you out of the street. That's all that will happen. Why? Because as we grow, our ego and selfishness develops. You might say, baby, I understand. But a madman, a mad person is one who has no ego temporarily. When you go and meet a madman in the asylum, he might scream at you, he might swear at you, he might do negative things, but he's not doing out of ego. As a result, he's not an offender. The law is in his favor. The law will not penalize him. That is why before a judge makes a judgment, they examine their mental condition. Why? Because they're not living based on ego. You might say, well, that is more mad people, but temporary madness. A person who's drunkard. When you see somebody, a friend of yours, or somebody, an acquaintance, drunk and lying down on the street, will you ignore the person and go? You will see what you can do. Probably take him to the house, or you won't leave him, especially in the cold winter. Why? Because temporarily there is no ego. So the law is that when humanity lives our life based on without selfishness and ego, remember, dharmo rakshati rakshita. Dharma protects those who protect dharma. So when we introspect, that is what we need to introspect. My physical life, am I living according to dharma? My emotions, am I entertaining negative emotions? Anger, jealousy, arrogance. Even when you sit and entertain jealousy or hatred towards that person, all right, it is making an impact in the world. Because if the whole humanity is thinking negatively, there will be negative vibration. Therefore, what we need to realize is that introspection, you can't go outside, but you can definitely go inside. Going inside means being acutely aware that what am I doing in this world? What is my purpose? Is my existence making a positive impact? Then you need not worry. So in this 3 weeks, it can be more of lockdown period. What we need to do is that enjoy what many of us have actually dreamed of. That is, every one of us have dreamt of living at home, doing nothing, and without feeling guilty. Because you're helpless. There's nothing you can do. So when you live at home, all right, enjoy our stay, live in the present. That is, don't be regretful of what you have done in the past. Don't be anxious about what is going to happen after the lockdown period is over. You may have invested in the business, or you could be working for a company, whether you will have the job there or not. All right, just live in the present, because in your lifetime, you and me may never get an opportunity like this, and we only pray that we don't get an opportunity like this, of course. Right. So now that we got the opportunity that you never asked for, it has come unsought. Let us live in the present. Let us not be regretful of the past. Let us not go through that guilty conscience. Let us not be unduly anxious about the future, what is going to happen. If you're living in the present and relish the moment, all right, and then Another very important aspect is send out the prayers of to the universe. Now, when you send out the prayers of the universe, remember, you pray with a purpose and not pray with fear. Why our prayer is not effective? Because most people pray driven by fear rather than driven by purpose. When our prayer is driven by purpose, it makes an impact. Now, what does it mean, praying driven by purpose? All right. Driven by purpose means that when you pray, number one, there must be the element of gratitude in our prayer. Despite the advent of coronavirus, there are thousands and thousands of blessings. We are grateful that at least our situation is not like China or Italy or what do you call this, which other, America or any other countries. Grateful, and we pray that it didn't get there. So when our prayer is filled with an attitude of gratitude for all the blessings that we have, that is called praying with a purpose. Whereas praying with fear is we are afraid what is going to happen and pray to God that please ward off this corona. And those are the people who engage in mechanical rituals, blind faith and superstition. They run after astrologers. And there are many astrologers in India and in South Africa claiming and taking advantage of this disaster. And they are saying, I've predicted this and this is going to happen, etc. It is the weak-minded people who fall for such predictions, etc. Remember, human beings have got the intellect. You have the free will. You take the responsibility of your life upon yourself. Don't depend our happiness upon the movement of the planets and all those. Yes, no doubt the planets have got influence on the human mind. But this disaster, the pandemic that we are going through, is created by human beings, and only human beings can destroy it. Don't wait for movement of the planets to eradicate coronavirus. Take responsibility. Let us follow the instructions of the World Health Organization. Our presidents say everything. And let's be responsible. And that is the way that we can ward off the influence. So therefore, pray. Pray means send that blessing. There are two types of prayer. One is reactive prayer. The other one is proactive prayer. Reactive prayer is when you pray, oh God, please take away my problems. Sometimes when you pray to take away my problem, He take away our life itself. Proactive prayer means, oh God, give me strength to face the challenges. Oh God, give me mental stamina to endure the difficulties. Oh God, give me that wisdom to use my intelligence. Reactive prayer is when you pray to God to give you more wealth. Proactive prayer is when you pray to give you that wisdom to use the existing wealth that you and me have. With that understanding, let us all think positively and work together to overcome this very difficult time. Remember, not to go through that anxiety and fear. It creates an impact outside in the world to the other people. It also creates a negative impact in your system because it destroys your immunity. So live with serenity, live in the present. Now, given the circumstances that we are, I want to recommend that we have 2 classes a week until we are all emerge out of our hideout after the corona impact is over. Is that my suggestion is to meet on a Friday afternoon at the same time, 7 o'clock again. All right. If you're all up to it, please respond on the Facebook or on the WhatsApp, whichever. All right. So if most people are available, I would like to continue on a Friday, that is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Tuesday again. So until the ban is lifted. All right, I wait for your response on the Facebook or on WhatsApp or wherever. All right. So think about it, reflect upon it. May Bhagavan be kind to us, so that because we are being very optimistic and proactive, and we come out, emerge successful with this war against coronavirus. Thank you.